catch up, green up, back up. What's that all about? Stay tuned and all will be revealed. Well, good afternoon everyone and welcome back to Piccadilly. It has been a little while, but needs must, I'm afraid. So I haven't done a massive amount of recent times, although before I kind of stopped, progress did continue for a little while after the last video. So let's have a look at what I've done since then. Well, I think the last project I did was those. Now, having got the resin printer, I decided I would have a go at making some, well, I call them shopping trolleys, but you've got the B&Q style shopping trolleys there, because obviously this whole building here is a B&M. And these ones here, although you probably can't see it very well, are traditional shopping trolleys. Now, I'll be honest, although the printer printed it, the bars on the shopping trolley were less than a hair's width, to be honest with you. And as soon as I tried to remove them from the supports, it literally just disintegrated in my hand. So I thought, this is not going to work. So that one there are resin printed. That was the only one I could save. These ones here, these 3 lines, are printed on the filament printers and considerably simplified. So that kind of worked. I've also got these, I think they're air conditioning units behind there, and that fence has fallen off again. And so there's 2 of those just there and 1 there, and obviously the fence is around. You probably haven't seen the weathering that I've done on the hatch lines and the car park lines. Literally, as I said before, a sponge with some grey paint on it, white paint on it, very little, and you literally just dab all over it and you get the effect that you want. I think I showed you that lorry there, but having said about those shopping trolleys just there being 3D printed, you'll probably realise all the cars have been painted up now, and most of them are resin printed. So that there is a Jeep Renegade. And these files are readily available on Thingiverse, and there's loads. An old style Vauxhall Corsa, just there. This is where my knowledge starts to wane a little bit. I think that's a Renault, but I can't be totally sure. But there's that. It might even be a Toyota. I don't know. Range Rover, I think. And there's so many. And what you do, obviously, once you've downloaded the file, I think they come ready for 00 gauge, 1/76. So I go on to, I put the dimensions of the vehicle in, or I find out the dimensions from the internet, and then put it all into millimetres and divide it by 148, and you get the measurements there. They on average about 30 millimetres long by around about 11-12 millimetres wide, give or take there. But along similar lines, you may remember a long time ago I made these buses. Now obviously this is not going on to Glossop because there's not really anywhere to put it. No, I mean the only road would be down here, and having a bus go around that corner, it just doesn't seem right to me when the actual shopping street is down that area there. But at the time, I got this from the paper bus company. Now I think from what I'm gathering, they've kind of disbanded, but there are nets, cardboard nets still on the internet, which you can download and make into the buses you want. Now, this does seem a bit on the wide side, to be honest with you, maybe a tad tall, but I thought, why not have a go at making some resin printed buses? Now, nobody makes... Whether I said this before, but I went up to Oxford Rail at the NEC show, Key Model World Live, and spoke to, I think it was the managing director of sales, I'm not sure. But I said, can we have some modern cars and even some modern buses? And although very polite answer, in a word, no. So you're left with, they don't sell. And that's bottom line of it, really. There's no point in them putting thousands of pounds into a model and it doesn't sell. So I can get the logic in it. But I've made these, if you're into your buses, these are Enviro 400s, probably around about 10 years old now. So that's in the brand new steel livery, steel blue. And if I'm understanding it correctly, all the Stagecoach buses will go to that eventually. This is the livery that most of the buses are already in. That's only just been recently done. I think the green is not quite right there, but I might repaint that, I don't know. But it's not far off, to be honest. Maybe a tad lighter. So there's that one. Okay, and I actually did 2 of these. So you got one there and one there. So I've made three double-decker buses. And I might just keep that one on the layout for a little bit longer. There are a couple of buses in Dinting, and there will be some more going through Fairfield Street behind the Piccadilly Station and 1 or 2 other places. Right, so anyway, well, next up, as you can see, these 2 buildings here, they are pretty much finished now. This is quite weighty, as you can probably imagine. It's all 3D printed, but you've got the balcony on there and the signs, which I've literally just copied and pasted from the Google Maps, and also the steps going up to that front door, the middle one, and there's a bit of a wall, and obviously that's part of the pub. Okay, so at least gives those buildings a bit of identity now, doesn't it? So that's and you might realise I just put a little bit of a frame or a ridge running down there, so when I locate that building, it's got somewhere to sit. And also this, I've now put the foliage around that building along the drain pipes and plate and things like that. So the foliage goes around the corner. It is a little bit of an improvisation because, to be honest with you, you know, I can't see the back. But looking at that scene now with the foliage across the front, now please bear in mind this is N-gauge and I'm working with bits of foliage which look like nothing, and you're trying to make it into like quite a decorative flower arrangement like the people really would, and it's not as easy as it first appears. So I think it kind of works. I put some different varying colours in of lichen in there, there's some clump foliage gone in there, scatters everywhere and all that sort of stuff. And the car, which isn't the right one, but that's what I can find. I don't know what they've got, to be honest with you. But then onto this part here now, and I've started to put the bridge in. Now, if I take that out, because it's not glued, obviously that needs sorting out in there. But it's a complete lattice, as you can appreciate. So I've tried to replicate it as best I possibly can. And also you've got the bridge girders there with the sign. Do not pass under this if you've got a tall vehicle type sign, unless you want it to become a tin opener, which, you know, there are videos on the internet about that, isn't there? So that just needs covering over now, and then I can put the road back in. Not the road bed, or the track bed, I should say, because there's a piece of curved track comes out of there. And I've got a feeling this area was heavily modified at one point, because I was looking into the history of Glossop, and it used to be a 2-platform station, this side as well. And this area here, this wasn't here, this was, and I got a feeling this was a goods shed. And there were lines coming down here, railway lines, and there was I think these canopies there was a bigger canopy, I think, went over the top. From what I'm gathering from pictures I've seen, I can't show you those, they're copyrighted, of course. Anyway, you can see it's all coming along, and we're not actually that far off. So what I want to try and do in this video, if I can, is to try and get some of the foliage on it now, some of the trees, get this finished up as I suggested, and take it from there, because I really would like to get this back on the layout, purely because it's in the way in the living room, as you can appreciate, and it really needs to be back upstairs to enjoy the view with the trains running past it. So anyway, let's see what we can do. Well, there we are. That's made a bit of a difference, hasn't it? Now, just to address this little bit there, that piece of track is not the original piece that come out of there. Do you think I can find it? No. So chances are I'll probably get that cut, get it all fixed up, and then I'll find the original. But there we are, that's the way life is. But this is the first stage of the foliage, and that has made a huge difference. So just have a bit of a walk around there. We've got these gardens in the station section there, and a bit behind the building there. Got some more weeds and stuff going down there. And I've built up these areas on the car park section. Obviously all the vehicles have been removed for the moment, and built up that obviously down there, and so on and so on. Now this area here, probably that as well to some degree, all along here, all down the back here, along there, is kind of all made up, this bit here as well, because it is a version of dinting. It is not, or Glossop, sorry, it is not a scale model, and I keep saying that it is a version, and there has to be some compromises. The idea would be that hopefully you can recognise bits and say, oh yeah, that's Glossop. That's my hope anyway. But you can see there's a little box gone in there, junction box, and the gate has gone in there. There's a little plank. If you look at the station, there's these old railway sleepers gone in there just to create that, like a little raised bed, so to speak, that type of thing. But to do this, there's a whole load of different materials been used, and as you can appreciate, there's a whole loads of scatters gone in there, and the small stuff, and the bigger clump foliage, that type of stuff, all sorts of bits and bobs, including, if I can find it now, we've got lichen, which is that, and I've even used some of that as well. And when you put the two together, you can see how garish they look together. But if you put it in and blend it in and then put scatter over the top, it kind of tones it down a little bit. It's not perfect, but I think it just creates enough elevation. Now, for the moment, I'm not saying I'm going to leave it, because obviously this needs to go back upstairs now, but the next stage is to start putting the taller stuff in. This is obviously just the low to medium, but I've got to carry this up the stairs, and the last thing I wanted to do is put all this lot on and then carry it up the stairs and find out that half of it's all over the staircase. So as you can see, it's not quite dry. There are bits all over the place which are still a little bit wet. So I'll leave it another few hours, then take it up, and then we'll start looking at some trees and create some height in varying places. I think one of the things I'd like to do is to create like shields. So there will be some taller trees down this bit, as there will be down there. And obviously that section still needs to be done. It was just a bit out of the way when I did the rest, but you know, I'll soon put that on, and it'll be easier once it's upstairs to be able to start building things up without knocking other bits off, so to speak. So there we go. Right, I'll catch you shortly. Well, there you can see Glossop is finally on the layout after many months being away. Now, as I said before, I am going to start putting some height on this, and hopefully you can see the reason why. It does look very flat, and I think it does need building up. I mean, obviously I will try and follow the what's actually there as best I can with what I've got. But a lot of it seems to be off scene. Like, there are massive trees down there, so that's going to be a painted back scene, which will obviously go in. There are some trees going in down here, but it's this area I want to build up all down here, because that is supposed to be a track which is encased in forest, if you like, and a lot of the Manchester branch lines seem to be a bit like that. There is a few taller trees in this section here which is actually there, so I can do that as best I can, bearing in mind this is considerably shorter than what the real thing is, and obviously this is all made up. All around here is all made up, all this bit's all made up as well. There will be kind of car parking area here, but anyway, what am I going to use for that? Well, be a whole mixture of stuff here. So I bought this box of seafoam, and some of it's all right, but you've probably heard a lot of the seafoam isn't that great anymore, and this, it's okay, you know, there's some bits I can use out of that. So there's that, and I did manage to buy this bag, this assortment bag from Bagman or Woodland Scenics when I went to the show, and you might just be able to make out that stuff just here, which is absolutely fantastic. There are instant trees there, so I will be using some of that along with some of this matted well, microfiber really. You tease it out, and there's some more flock there which I've clump foliage type stuff which I've already got, but also some of these. Now you might thinking, well, what am I using these for? Well, I think actually once they're painted up a grey colour, which I obviously do first, and then you put them on the layout with loads of foliage over the top, I think they're going to be absolutely fine. They are quite basic, I know that, but you know, it is basic tree filling that I need here, and this stuff is enormously expensive, and seafoam, as we've said before, isn't the same quality as it used to be. So, and even then it's still very expensive, so I'm trying to make the best of what I've got with all sorts of bits. So I will be using some of that, and we'll see how we get on. I'll show you in a bit. Right, as I said, I'll be using some of these. So my first job was to sort of dry brush some grey over the top just to give it some variation, and then twist the branches into shape. As you can see, that is fairly flat, and I'll show you what I mean. Right, I've gone ahead and done a little bit more than I thought it would, but hopefully you can see that the tree has been painted and twisted into more of a 3D shape, and then I sort of put some of this on it, which came with that big pack I showed you earlier on. Now there's a brush inside here, so it's literally just a case of whacking it on the branches, and that's a contact adhesive, so when you come to put your foliage over the top, it just sticks. Now I've done a whole variety of different ones, but that is obviously lichen, and then the next stage would be to spray it with some other spray glue, which I'm using this stuff from B&M, but again, any spray glue will do, and then put some scatters over the top, possibly something a bit like that. So it's not the really fine stuff, but you can see they're like small clumps, coarse turf they're calling it, okay, and any variation thereof, that type of thing, whatever. I put that on my last one, and again, it's just to sort of break up this sort of licheny look which does seem to have, and obviously if there's any stems sticking up in the wrong direction, they need to be snipped off, that type of thing. Right, so I'll get this one sprayed. I'm not going to show you it from beginning to end, but it'll be a case of putting that fine stuff on and then going in with some really fine scatters, the blended turf, whatever it might be, but the powdery type stuff. There you go. So I have scattered it with some of that, which came in that bag that I showed you. And I think one of the secrets with a tree is to keep it light and airy so you can see through it. Otherwise it tends to be a little bit more of a blob on a stick. So that's come out reasonably well. I'm quite happy with that. Alright, so I'm going to whack it on the layout now, and I'll show you in a bit. And so on to the final part now, which is the back scenes. And so what I've got here is, or will have, 3 layers of grey board, obviously not grey as such, but then in the middle layer, then I've cut out these 60mm square slots all the way along. And then using these brackets, pretending that this board is the baseboard, that will be screwed up from underneath. And then when you put them on, they will just literally slot over the top. I've been doing it for the last few years and it has worked very successfully. And with 3 layers glued together, it really does make a strong unit as such. Now, this board that I've got here does tend to fray quite easily. So when I've done it, I will just run around the outside with a roll of masking tape, just as such, just common or garden stuff. And that will help just support the edge and stop it from breaking up. I'll speak soon. And there we are. So you can see now I've got the trees in, most of them anyway. And the back scenes are in also, so ready to be painted. Big tall tree in the corner there, which is pure seafoam. And some of these other trees here, which are those woodland scenic type trees that I was telling you about. Some more of those, the conifer style over there. And I think that's coming on quite nicely. I'll just show you that scene down there, as if you travel down the road. So if you live near Glossop or you go down there, you can tell me what you think about that. Does it look about right? And obviously this scene here is more made up, obviously, because I don't know what's behind here. I know there's a car park for the pub in this general area here, but I really hard to see what it's like with just an aerial photo. But, you know, I quite like the idea of having a little bit of shrubland in this area here, cars parked there for the offices in front, and then there's the fence running all the way down there, which sort of carries on down to this point here and then carries on down there. So these people do have a little bit of garden they can sit out in. And obviously all the cars, some very nicely parked as well. And then the traffic all parked up in the B&M car park just down there. Shopping trolleys, as I pointed out to you a few clips ago. And the lorry can go out down there in that area there. Probably can't see it so well there. And the road, it does carry on down here under the bridge and goes out down there where that light is. There's a window just there. Okay, I'll take you around the corner. There might be some glare from this side. The sun's quite strong this time of the day, but hopefully you can get the idea now of how that looks and the quantity of trees and shrubbery in this side of the layout. And they are acting as a scenic break to this section, or a different zone if you like. I keep talking about these different zones and having different areas of the layout so you can separate different places. So effectively you can have several places very close to each other which are actually miles apart. That's the general idea of the layout. And as I said before, I think the trees do make it, to be honest. And when I put my trees in, I do tend to drill a hole, but I glue my trees together. So when I got that in there, I glue it to neighbouring trees so they help each other and support each other. Okay, now there is an issue with the track work. As you can see, I've got a point here which will be replacing that. This is partly why it's not been ballasted at the moment, but also I seemingly bent the tracks there, so obviously that needs to be sorted. I'll probably end up replacing the whole of that piece, if I'm being honest. Might make more sense. And the same sort of thing at this end, if I bring you round. But there's no point in doing anything about here, because if you remember, there's going to be a big girder type bridge where all the signals are for Piccadilly Station. I'm just going to duplicate that, so you know, that will be in the future at some point. I'm not sure quite when, maybe next year, we'll see. But then obviously this area here, I've got some different thoughts about this area now, which I'll share later on. I think it's a bit too much for this video. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I think I will leave it there, and I will catch you again very, very soon here on Piccadilly. Take care of yourself, and bye for now.